Hey everyone, welcome to the Play at 3 podcast and welcome to our very last episode, our season finale, if you will. I'm your host, Tisha Poncio, and I am here with my co-host who's run 39.3 miles worth of half marathons, launched businesses, leveled up characters, and written more code than he's ever slept. He's basically a real life NPC who's become the main character. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick.
Real
Do you
life
like that
NPC. A
Do you
real
like
life
that?
NPC.
Well, listen, for so long in season 1, you were like, Tisha, can you please give me a proper intro? Why is your intro so not great? And I thought for the season finale, I should give you a really good one. I
That
just
makes
wanted
a
to.
nice change, because at the same time, even though you've gone and introduced yourself, I have a lovely, pleasant introduction for
Okay,
Tisha that's
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
completely away from the amazing Tisha that I always give you when
Oh, okay.
when I'm
Okay,
introducing you. But
I'm ready.
and so if you ignore that Tisha just introduced herself, joining me as always, straight out of Dallas, y'all, former teacher, full-time idea machine, and the only person I know who can wind me up, run a podcast, and have 47 browser tabs all on different things at once. It's the one and only Tisha, still representing Justin Bieber like it's 2012.
Yeah, thank you. That was a
You're
great
very welcome.
intro, actually.
You're very
So
welcome.
accurate.
And
So
she had a go
accurate.
at me when I wasn't ready, when she wanted to press record. There's the reason. So
Well, I wasn't. No, it's just that this episode is so exciting, and I
it
was
is.
ready to hit record, but it's funny that you said idea machine, because I think that over the course of how many episodes is this? What number is this? 50?
This is episode 50. Bang on.
So 50 episodes in.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of 50 episodes, each of those episodes, if you're just estimating, were an hour, right? An hour long, some
Yep.
less, some more.
Yep.
Then you factor in the planning time, which it wasn't really that we were putting a plan together. It was more like discussions and talking and what are the trending topics and like what's going on in the world. If you put all of that together, it's a lot of time. But in the course of that time, we came to this level of trust. Trust with writing a book is different, I would say, than trust co-hosting a podcast together, because the writing the book is, we're doing all of that sort of behind the scenes. Nobody's watching us argue over a paragraph or a chapter title live. And here on the podcast, multiple times people have gotten to see the dynamic of us disagreeing or debating or winding each other up, as you said, like just with little comments and things. And I think really at the end of this whole season, and at the end of the day, as you Brits say,
Yep.
there is a level of trust that I give Rick on technical aspects. So you're scheduling the posts, you're editing, you're doing a lot of the things in Riverside. I could do that with you. I offered that. You said, no, let me take that away. And then I have become really the idea generator. So I will push back on some of your ideas and say, that's boring.
99.9% of them.
Hey,
or have a go at me when she's like reading the captions from the social posts that I've got, going, Rick,
oh, yeah.
can you change these? Because this is just terrible.
Well, I don't use the word terrible because they're not terrible. I'm just like, my brain is more, my ideas, like, they spawn on the fly. And I think,
yes, they do.
I think that is a superpower of an ADHD or a neurodivergent.
Just to give reference to everybody.
Sure.
I'm going to paint a picture, a beautiful painting.
I can't wait.
Of Tisha in the moment can be talking to me about something completely different and then go and come up with a random idea and say, did you write that down? I had no idea of the transition from what we were talking about to a potential podcast idea, and still the expectation that I've written this down when I might be doing 5 other things at the same time.
Yeah.
Being on the ball with Tisha is one of the biggest challenges I'd probably say I've learned from doing this podcast. got to be
Yeah,
constantly on
honestly,
the ball when it comes to Tisha and her ideas being generated.
I think you've done a great job, actually. I was thinking back to our Wakelet days, and when I would do that with you, I remember you would be like, "Wait, what?" And it'd
Yep.
take us like 5 minutes to get on the same page. I think now I also, I trust your technical aspects. Like, I have no it really has been a process of learning to trust and do teamwork together, which
Mm,
is really a key skill as an entrepreneur, as a student, really in whatever industry you're in.
absolutely.
Um, so I think that is something that I want to point out, that we've really learned. 50 episodes in, we've learned how to disagree. We've learned how to have great conversations in those disagreements. We've learned how to compromise. We've learned how to problem solve. You've learned how to trust me in this way that I would say 98% of people don't trust me with, which is this ability to intuitively know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't always give you the data, but I can intuitively tell you this is going to hit with the audience and this won't hit. This is where the audience is living in
Mm-hmm.
the trends and the social aspects, and this is where they're not. This is what is going to get missed for a teacher, and this is, we have those conversations,
Yeah.
and I just want to say
It's
thank you for trusting me, because I haven't gotten that
mm-hmm.
very often.
Yeah.
And I think in the
Well,
same
you're very
regard,
welcome. You're very
yeah, in the
welcome.
same regard, I feel like I give you the trust with the technical pieces, which I want to say publicly has always been hard for me before, because I also can do the social
Well,
media, the
that's the
editing.
interesting thing. I mean,
Yeah.
as you were saying about trusting you with the direction, the ideas that you're coming up with, because a lot of what you've just said, even though you can't come with the data, a lot of it is gut feel
Mm,
or your intuition, because what it actually comes from, being neurodivergent, you're connecting the numerous dots,
yes.
thousands, tens of thousands,
Yes.
hundreds of thousands, millions of different dots, and creating a consistent pattern that you've seen before. Now, the
Yeah.
problem is, because those around us tend to not really know what those are or can't make the dots, they don't see the picture. For
Mm,
me, because I do the same thing,
yeah.
and let's say 9 times out of 10, you can come up with an idea, and I'm still completely confused from how did you get to that point, which is the amount of
Hmm.
times I've asked Tisha to kind of like, can you just lay the path of how you got from what we were talking about before to where
Yeah.
we are now? Because clearly you have made 10 connections in the space of 3 milliseconds that
Yeah.
I've completely missed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the challenges with neurodivergency, but it's one of the amazing powers that we can actually have, and being able to trust each other in that level. I would say the book was a big lesson for us both,
Yeah.
but this podcast has really opened us up to trusting each other with those areas. Because I would say that you trusted me with the technology, but there was probably some part of you that was like, I still want to get involved with the
It's
technology
like
side.
it's because I think because we could do this on our own. Like, we've
Oh,
said that.
absolutely, we
Like, we
can.
could do a podcast on our own. But what was the challenge was releasing the control, because for so
Hmm.
long, again, I think it comes back to that neurodivergent idea. And what I love about the journey that we've kind of taken between the book to the podcast, you talk a lot about how you used to say, I would never write a book.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I'm going to write a book. Like,
Hmm.
then I was saying, I don't really want to be one of those podcasters. I really don't. I really don't want to. That's a lot of energy and time. And then I'm the one that tossed the idea over to you, really thinking that you wouldn't pick it up and run with it. And you did.
Yeah.
And I think that both of us kind of were like, oh, we're never going to do that, which is really the title of our last episode, Never Say Never. Um, if you know anything about Justin Bieber, you'll see the play on words. But I think we want to talk about, for this episode, what happens to you when you do it anyway. I used to tell my students, feel the fear and do it anyway. What happens when you are in the middle of a journey, when you are in like I want to say how did I word it? Now I'm trying to remember. It's like this moment in time as a neurodivergent where you're, trying to go from one activity to another,
Mm-hmm.
that is difficult. The the dysfunction that's happening in our brain to get us from one activity to another, from the shower to the bed, to the bed to the shower to the workout, whatever it is. I call it I call it the in between.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you're in the in between as an educator, as just a human being, like you're in between projects, you're in between jobs, you're in between goal setting. What happens if you just do it anyway to the one idea that you think would never be successful? And that's really what I think we're bringing to the table today. We want to talk to you about some things that have changed with us over the course of 50 episodes. We want to talk about some quirky things that you probably have spied over the course of 50 episodes, and then maybe talk about some myths about really doing the project anyway without
Mm.
really fully knowing what the plan is, which is interesting because that goes against the grain of every business plan that you probably ever had. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say it is. Because the
Hmm.
amount of times, even the smallest of little things you try to plan out with detail, you know that I like to bullet point my
You
entire
like
to-do
it.
list to the
You do. Oh my
extreme.
gosh. Yes. Take
To
out
the
the
extreme.
trash. Put the
Take out
trash
the tray,
bag back
have a
in.
shower, cook food. I mean, if I want to like plan out even this is something I learned with neurodivergent. It's completely off topic from what you were initially
Ooh,
planning
okay.
because obviously we have a plan and we never stick to it.
Hmm.
The idea, did we speak about it in a previous episode?
What
Basically,
was it?
where you end up like having a shower, getting ready in the morning
Oh, yeah. The
is
effort
like a
that it takes. Yeah.
15-step process of
Yeah.
everything.
Yep.
I bullet point those. So if I'm needing to like do the laundry, I put the
Walk
laundry
from
in
the
the
living
washing
room
washing.
to the lounge.
Yeah.
Walk from the washroom to the lounge.
Okay, it's not that bad. But putting the clothes in the washing machine, noting how long it's probably going to take,
Mm-hmm.
hanging it up, and also then once it's dry, putting it away. All of those things take 5 minutes. They're on my list of things to do. And I'll be having it, like, let's take a weekend. I'll have Saturday where it's like the washing side, and then on Sunday will be the 5 minutes of putting the clothes away. Because I have a tumble dryer, but in the UK, we don't really use tumble dryers like you do in the US. So most of things go out on a clothesline or whatever and just dry slowly. Is probably
Yeah.
the best way
Yeah.
to say it.
I like
But
how you call it
it is,
a tumble dryer. It makes that always, that's one of the things that if you're listening to the podcast, if you have listened to it, you'll start listening to some of those nuances in British culture and American culture. You'll
mhm.
see the overlaps, you'll see the differences, whether we're talking about education or we're talking about doing your laundry.
Yeah, they're all interlinked.
The Play at 3 podcast is going to bring you all sorts of aspects that you didn't even expect.
Yeah, exactly. It's
There
the
was our
way
promo
we
video for
work.
season 2.
Which, by the way, Tish has just hinted
Season
that season 2
season
is going to be coming,
2.
even though this is going to be our finale of season 1. Tisha didn't say that at the beginning, that it is the season
Season
finale,
1
and
finale.
season 2 will be starting next week. So if you are feeling
Season
disheartened at the
2.
beginning, don't worry, there is going to be
We're
more
coming back.
episodes.
We're coming back, and honestly, we're coming back with a bang.
With a bang. Like,
We
seriously,
are. We are.
the next 2 episodes
It's
are
going to
going
be
to be
good.
absolutely fire.
If you've
And
not watched the Play It Through podcast, you probably want to watch the episodes on like 2 times speed so you can get caught up, because the next 2
fast.
episodes are going to be really good.
Yeah.
And we have some really incredible episodes. We talked about doing a reflection episode with this one, but I decided no. And I told Rick,
No,
no,
no, we kind
that's
of
what
did that
everybody
in
else
Christmas,
does.
didn't we?
Yeah, we did it at
So,
Christmas. I think Christmas and holidays is a good time for reflection.
yeah, exactly.
You didn't want to
Exactly.
do my February Chinese New Year reflection, so we'll just do it at Christmas every year.
Yeah. This is the Christmas specials.
It is. It is. Okay. So let's just get into it. I'm going to put you back on track today.
Thank you.
Let's talk about 3 things that have changed with us since we started episode 1 to episode 50. What are some
Okay.
things, what are 3 things that you've been doing differently since we started, or 3 lessons that you've learned?
Okay. So 3 things that are different.
It could be any of that.
Okay. Well, I'll give you 3 3
We
quick
like it.
fire things that have actually happened. I'm older, I'm grayer, and I've got more wrinkles.
That's going to go for all of us, Rick. Okay?
Okay.
You've
All
just
right. If you
covered our
want something a bit
entire
more
audience.
unique,
We
then
would like
okay.
that.
So one of the biggest things that I've learned from this podcast, and I know it comes up quite frequently because Tisha absolutely loves that episode, is the one with Brian Seppi.
So
Comes up
good.
frequently. It was one of our personal favorites.
It's not often that you get challenged in the way that Brian challenges. And I think that is what I love so much about it. You know, I've worked with a lot of leaders. I've worked with a lot of inspirational people. The way that he goes about coaching someone is like
Oh,
it's a fine art, the way he
yeah.
did it. And I think that's why it's my favorite, because
I think that's the thing with leadership, though, is you can lead people, but there is a particular
it's an
skill
art.
or what's the word, talent behind it,
Mm-hmm.
where it is that thin line of trying to get your message across and influencing someone to actually go and do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he just seems to get it absolutely spot
He
on so much. I mean, he's, like I've said before, no one's
he's meant to do
perfect,
that.
but
No, but he's
it's
meant
like,
to do that. Yeah.
yeah, it's like for him, the way I look at it, there's been times where I've nailed it on the line. You've done exactly the same, Tish.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like a 10-15% either side, like
I love how you went into
flexibility,
metrics.
whatever. But for him, from how I see him, is it's like his is like a 3%
Well, because think about
correction at
it. You're
times.
about to
It's
talk
like
about
amazing.
the effect that he's had on you, and that is probably going
Yeah.
to be your 3 things. And same thing for me. So I'm going to let you go ahead
Yeah.
and share your
So
3 things.
basically, one of the things that came up in our conversation was how doing something, learning from it, and going on to do the same thing, but taking on the lessons you've learned and implementing them into the thing you're doing. So, for example, my situation was I did a half marathon back in
I thought this was going to be
2019.
a quick fire. You're
All
now
right,
going into your
29.
life story.
I'm giving. My goodness, we're 18 minutes in. I'm pretty sure I'll calculate I've spoken for 3 minutes. But basically, yeah, I'm now doing another half marathon, which he encouraged for. I've been training. I've been learning from what I did last time, what I didn't do last time, and I'm not only just doing a marathon this year. I'm doing 2 half marathons.
Mm-hmm.
One's at the end of May and one's at the beginning of October. So I'm doubling the amount of half marathons I'm doing in a year, which I'm now starting to not panic, but the reality is setting in. But the good thing
So
is I did
good.
a 10K literally before this podcast. And also, just so people know when this has been recorded, the Manchester Half Marathon was going on today. That was a huge booster for me to go out and do a 10K. So I'm proud. I'm happy. And the good thing is, I know I'm talking more. I know you asked for 3 quick fire. I don't care. I'm saying it anyway because I'm proud of what I've achieved. And I know it's not as good as other people, but it's what I've done. I'm 7 years older from when I last did a 10K that I monitored. I'm also slightly heavy. I'm not going to give the specific numbers, but I'm heavier. But I still only did the 10K 3 minutes slower than my personal best. So
Incredible.
age doesn't mean anything. Size doesn't mean
It
anything.
doesn't.
You just
It
don't
doesn't.
do it.
It doesn't. It's absolutely true. You just set your mind to do something and you do it. I think it's
Exactly.
incredible. Is there anything else? I mean, we talked about 3 things that have changed with you since we started this episode 1.
The
Is there
biggest one
anything else?
we have talked about trust. I will step into that one a little bit because Trust has been a huge, huge thing. Tisha's been the one that's actually dealt with getting the guests on board, and she's done a phenomenal
I'm the
job on that.
recruiter.
You are
I
the
would
official
say.
recruiter of
Talent
the Player 3.
recruiter. I'm talent acquisition. We should put that
Yes.
on my resume.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think that should be on there straight right at the top in gold writing. So basically trusting her in that side of things, because I do believe that even though we could do these podcasts by ourselves, there are certain elements that the other person can do better than the other. So it definitely has been a big lesson for me to trust Tisha on getting the guests involved, getting the topics together and everything. So that's been amazing for me, because building something from the ground up has been one thing that I've always done. Having someone like Tish to support me is it's been amazing.
It's a different dynamic. Is there a third thing? You talk to marathons. Is there a third?
Things that have changed with me.
You got a
I'm
different
still
job.
wearing the black. Yeah, I've got a different job. I was going to say, I mean, I'm still wearing the black T-shirt.
No, we're getting to that. We're getting to that. Don't say that yet. We're going to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a new job. Since we started back in early November. I'm 6 months. From the day this episode goes out, it'll be 6 months.
If
and
we
it
were
does
in the
not feel
elevator,
like it.
if we were in the elevator with our listeners, what is your one sentence elevator speech on what you do now?
So I am one of the product designers at the company. So we focus on usability, experience, and branding for the product for our customers to ensure that the product is as seamless as possible.
That's awesome. Look at that. Look
It's
at you being
amazing.
so clear and concise with your elevator
I know.
speech.
It only took 38 years.
And how many minutes? Yeah, I gave you a lot of time. I let you tell your life story today. I think it was warranted. I think it was.
I think that's the longest I've ever spoken on the podcast.
Wow. 3 things that have changed with me.
Yes, go on.
Well, I'm much healthier than when I started. Last year was a difficult health year for me. And to be very transparent, which I always am, and because I think it might help someone who's listening, I started taking medication for my ADHD. And we started off great, and then we very quickly went very downhill, and it was not good, and it had a lot of effects on my body that I did not anticipate, and the doctors couldn't figure out. And so I am much healthier. I didn't get to work out.
Amazing.
So I'm not running a half marathon, but I didn't get to work out for almost a year just on doctor's orders. I hurt my shoulder. I had to go to physical therapy. It has been a year. So that is one thing that has changed. I'm healthier. I'm doing better. I'm working out again. I'm feeling like myself. Have really come up with some good strategies. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really, again, back to Brian Seppi's episode. I don't think I've been as challenged by any peer more than I have been challenged by Brian Seppi. And I am very outspoken on that. Last week someone said to me, Tisha was talking with an international educator, and it's so interesting because people say this to me all the time. Tisha, I'm not sure with you Americans if you're just telling me that you really like what I do or if you really like what I do. And I want to clarify that today on our season finale. If I tell you that you're brilliant, I'm not just being polite, because I am neurodivergent and I do not operate by the same rules that a neurotypical person does. I am not going to hide how I feel about your work, your talent, your projects. And so I don't give compliments unless I actually mean them. That is my social rule. And so I don't operate by everybody else's social rule. So I want to say Brian Seppi is the person who truly has challenged me probably more than anyone in my life, with the exception of Rick over here, who challenges me all the time with my ideas and my processes.
Damn straight.
But truly, Brian really helped me kind of come out of my shell and own myself. I don't even know how to explain that. So the thing that changed with me is I started posting on TikTok about the same time that you started your new job. I started posting on TikTok, and I didn't anticipate the impact that those videos would have on me, but that those videos would have on other people that I know in my personal life, and then strangers that I've never met. And there's just something about putting your face out there, and just despite what you all think, if you're listening and you believe that it's very cringe, I'm going to tell you, never say never. Being cringy and posting yourself out there is going to benefit you way more than it's going to benefit anybody who's watching you. And
Yep.
I am just going to say, so that's the second thing for me, the things that have changed. The third thing that has changed, I don't know. I don't know if I've done a
Oh,
third thing.
come on, Tish. You've
What
definitely
is
done
it?
at least 3 things.
I don't know the third thing, actually. Do you know a third thing?
You changed your camera for starters.
Okay, we'll go with that one. Shout out to Alfonso Mendoza, Dr. Fonz, and Rick are really impressed with the
Advocating.
camera change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. The 3
Huge
things. Yeah,
improvement from the
that's
previous
good.
one. Yeah.
So, yeah, you can see Justin's face a little bit clearer now.
Exactly. It's not
So we're
pixelated
gonna get
like Minecraft.
No, we're
anymore.
going to get to the Justin Bieber reference soon. I mean, obviously, we've already talked about it kind of in the title, but we're going to get there because there are some things we want to talk about. Now we're going to talk about 3 quirky things that if you were watching our episodes, not listening, you may be able to hear it if you were listening, because we might have referenced it every so often. But if you were watching the videos, some things that you would spy. So I know one of them for both of us. It's our backgrounds. Our backgrounds changed over the course of episode 1 all the way to episode 50. You aren't going to say that, but you did change your background. I remember. I will go back and get some evidence for you if you want.
Okay, you please go and do that and see how wrong you are. Other than
Well,
the
it may have
color.
been. I was going to say it may be that the audience can't see the full scope of your background, but I knew that you were changing some of your shelves, you were changing some things that were on the shelves. It was a whole process for you. Shelving was different every so often.
I think you're actually mistaking for before we started the podcast.
No, I'm
You
not.
are, because I haven't changed any of these. You
Well,
can't see it
we're going to have
right
a real
now,
argument now.
but these have
Okay.
not changed on the left and right of me since we started the podcast. Apart from, I will say that one on that side, my left. I don't know. Probably is that?
It's the right.
Yeah, it's left
for me. Yes.
Yeah, it's the right for you. That's fine. I'm just checking. There is one additional card, so I like to collect Pokemon cards. There was a gap that's been
There's
sat
one
there.
additional card.
There has been a gap waiting for that card arriving for majority of the podcast.
And now it's filled.
And now it's filled at long last.
Here's another quirky thing that people might have spied. Almost every episode, 98% of the episodes, Rick is wearing a black shirt. We've referenced that.
Yes,
it's like
we
your
have.
uniform.
Yep.
Another quirky thing would be the different coffee cups that Tisha has on each episode, or she's maybe using a wine glass.
I'm pretty sure I've been to Tisha's twice. And I'm pretty sure that even though I've walked around that entire house, I have still not found the cupboard of mugs or the room of mugs, because the volume of mugs that you have.
I don't have that many. You think I do, but I don't have that many. It's
we're
like the
50
clothes.
episodes. We're 50 episodes in, and there's clearly 50 mugs.
I didn't have a new mug for every episode, though. So
I'm pretty sure you will have done.
Do you have another quirky thing that people might have spied? Your hair.
I mean, apart from, I was going to say my hair. I mean, you'll probably notice from this episode to the next episode, and then following on from that episode, that in the space of 1 week, it goes from long, well, this is long for me these days, to suddenly short, and then back to long again, really showing when we're actually recording the episodes. They're not, obviously, if we've got blokes watching the show, we tend to not notice when women have their hair done because we're not very observant. But for all our female listeners, we'll also notice that Tisha has been changing her hair as we've been going along.
It's been growing. It's been growing since I stopped my medication. So we've got some new growth that we're working with. Yeah. You know what else?
It's all positive. What's the next one?
Here's another one that is quirky I Spy moments. Which fidget is Tisha going to be holding in the episodes? Because Rick actually said I think it was last week, he was like, you should do a shelf of all of your fidgets.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just bring them all on camera. If you're not watching, you can't see all of the fidgets that I have in my hand, and I'm missing some.
Holding 2, 4, 6,
3, 6.
8.
I have one that I'm not holding.
Basically, Tisha needs like a full-blown display cabinet for all her fidget things.
These are my favorite, and if you know Janet Corder, you know that she used to pass these
ASMR.
Pass these out.
I've got one of those.
Yeah, you do. I knew you did. So I keep these on my desk. Sometimes
it's like a little thing that you go on. For those that aren't watching, is you can put it on your finger and it's rolls it.
They're sensory fidgets because as a neurodivergent, sometimes if you have an anxious moment or you're getting nervous about something and you have a sensory fidget that it isn't painful, but like this one's really spiky, it changes your brain to go, oh, everything's okay. I'm fine.
Do you find it also helps you to like focus on certain things as well? Because that's something as well. Like I only have one fidget thing that Tisha got me, which is a little cube, which I, funnily enough, don't have on my table right now, which I'm really disappointed.
I have one of those too, but I don't have it on my table either. Yeah, the fidget cube is really good.
I will tend to play with my Apple Watch strap, my wallet, or I have a little clip thing that I put my phone into when I'm recording videos that I tend to play with. So that's what's really going on with us. When we're having these conversations, we're talking, but we're also fiddling with stuff.
Yeah. This one
keep
I
our
do.
Mind
you can't
in a way
see,
stable, really, isn't it?
It is. It lets my body move. Like my hands are fidgeting while I'm focusing on you, for example, right now. Now, as we're recording, because I'm really comfortable in this setting now, I don't mask as much. I do call this a form of masking because it is masking my fidgets. But I'm not afraid to like be on camera. And if you're watching, you're going to see me fidget. I'm going to play puzzles while I'm talking to you. And did you know sometimes when I do counseling virtually, I will play Nintendo Switch because it helps my brain focus on what I need to talk about, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. You're not distracted from what's actually going on.
Oh, no. I'm actually listening to you more if I'm you want me to fidget, actually.
Yes.
And that is a myth. Which I think we could probably bust that myth. If you want me to really pay attention to what you're saying, let me fidget because it means I'm going to concentrate on your words even more. I'm going to give you a really solid response.
Yes.
Walking helps too.
That's a lot more of stimulation because when you're walking, you're not only just moving. You have the visual cues, the noise, the smells, sounds, everything.
Walking is very inspirational actually for my brain. I've come up with my best ideas actually on walks. So now you've got me in my fidget moment. Okay. Let's see. We've already done the quirky I Spies. Let's talk about myths really quickly and briefly. 3 myths behind a podcast, a project, something that you say never to, but what happens when you do it anyway? What are the myths that we can, let's debunk them, because I think there are a couple. You wanted to talk about competence and confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we've always believed when we want to do something new that we're not actually familiar with, we feel that we need to be competent in doing the thing to be able to do it right. When really, all you need is confidence to do the thing. Confidence is far greater than competency. And the people that are actually competent, we're in exactly the same place you are today. Because they didn't get to being competent if they didn't step forward and do the thing, fail. Maybe they got it right the first time. Maybe they were lucky. I don't know. But you can guarantee the second time they did it, probably was a fail. And it was practicing and practicing over and over and learning the mistakes and what to look out for that made them competent. So having the confidence to just say, I'm going to go and do that, whatever the result is, if I fail or make a mistake, that's okay. It's the old saying that everybody says, fail fast, fail forward,
You know,
keep going, be consistent.
the thing about it is the definition of failure is different for everybody. And if you are defining yourself based on somebody else's definition of failure,
you know what? Failure
yeah,
does not, if you're going to do things, failure does not exist.
exactly. Just the act
It
of
is just
doing the thing actually makes you not fail. I think failing is when you aren't doing anything. You're not trying anything.
exactly. You succeeded in understanding how not to do something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
what
I think
you
you're right.
did. You succeeded in understanding how to not do something.
Yeah. The next one we wrote down, and these Rick really wanted to speak to these. I'm going to let you really speak to them because I think you're an expert in talking about these. The second myth is that you don't need the best equipment to do the thing,
You
whatever the
really
thing
don't.
is. You
You
don't need
really
the best
don't.
equipment.
You
Let's talk
don't.
about
I
that.
mean, we've
I
both
mean,
upgraded our equipment as we've been going along.
we did.
Like, you upgraded your camera, I upgraded my lighting. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
anybody actually saw how my setup is or was, I had two massive soft boxes that were overhanging, producing so much heat. They had no dial for like correcting. Like if it was dark outside and someone was walking past, it was like lit up like Blackpool illuminations. It was like freaking ridiculous how bright those things were. But there was no way to actually change them. Now I've got much smaller lights, LED lights, just on here. And the thing is, those soft boxes were bought like freaking 10 years ago for
Mm-hmm.
like 50 quid. What's that? $70. And I got like stands and I got 3 soft boxes and stands for that ages ago and just thought, you know what? I've got these. I'll just use it. The camera I have is what I had from 10 years ago, probably now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gone all out buying new things. The great thing is we have a phone, we have webcams in laptops. Tisha used her webcam. Yes, you had your microphone. I did get a microphone because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to invest in something because I didn't have one. But we've had guests on that've used AirPods.
Yep. And their phone.
AirPods, their phone.
And
It
that's all you
just
need.
shows that, yeah, you can make great quality out of just those things.
Absolutely.
Most of the things that we use is Riverside, and Riverside's been amazing, not plugging or sponsored by them, but the application's been wonderful and saved us so much time in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's helped us produce the quality of audio that we've had and the picture. So you don't need all singing, all dancing. You don't need 10 different cameras and a full-blown studio and stuff. I mean, if we went for a full-blown studio, the cost of per episode would be astronomical because either Tisha's got to fly here or I've got to fly there. And ain't anybody got time for that. Had to put that in there. But no, it's we've made do with what we've got, and as we've progressed more and more, we've upgraded things, and there'll be things that we'll upgrade in the future as we go through season 2, season 3, I'm sure. And you've just got to start with something. And I love how Tish just held the face of
I knew you were gonna say something. I
ping
forgot to put my phone on
vibration.
do not disturb, and now it's on do not disturb.
And here's
Okay.
another myth. If you mess up with little things like that, don't feel like you have to chop them out. We don't
that was
edit
the
these
thing.
videos.
We don't edit.
We do not edit. We just let it go.
You
and
get
we
what you get,
accept.
and you don't throw a fit.
Yeah, we just
That's a
basically look
teacher
at it and
phrase.
say, we are going to make mistakes and we're going to show the mistakes to you because it's okay.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second because I'm going to come back to that. We're going to talk about the mistake, showing that we're human. But I want to, the last myth here is that you have to have a perfect agenda, a perfect structure, and a perfect plan. And it has to only be a certain amount of time. So why don't you speak to the audience about those things and briefly, because I want to get into to some Justin Bieber
Well, you
chatting.
gave me 3 points in that question, so I'm gonna spend at least 10
Well,
minutes
we
for
wrote
each.
we no, don't do that. We don't have time for that. No, you know, I think they all really go together. It's really like, do you have to have a solid plan, execute that exact plan and the exact structure in the exact way, and do we have to do it like everybody else does it?
No, no, and no. How was that?
Good. That's great. That's great. I do
You
think that
don't.
that
You
is
don't.
a
We
misconception. Sometimes, don't you think, in the business world, in the education space,
in
it's like,
everything.
here's the agenda, here's the structure, here's the plan, and there's no room for anything. Now, as neurodivergents, we love to have a loose agenda, a loose structure, and a loose plan, but
Yes.
we also want the freedom to free flow because if an
Yes.
audience member or a guest comes on and says something that we didn't plan, we want to go with them down that path, right? Instead of
Exactly.
saying, no,
Exactly.
you can't talk
Because
about that.
that's the thing with neurodivergence, we'd like to have a routine. We like to have structure,
Hmm.
but that structure is only going to last like 6 to 8 weeks, and
Yeah.
then we're going to need something different.
Yeah.
A
I
path
think
of how we do things is going to be
if
this
you get
way and
too
changed later.
if you get too caught up in the control of a
Uh,
project, if you get too
uh,
caught up in the control of a plan, this could be for anything. This could be for our social media, this could be for our podcast scripts and questions and whatever. If you get too caught up in that, you
you
start
don't do
losing
anything.
that authenticity. You start losing the human side of
Yeah.
all projects, which is really the benefit.
I mean, just to give you an idea, like if you've been watching this podcast previously, and when we have guests on, I'm always asking Tisha a question. Just for context, 99.9% of the time, I do not know what the question is going to be until 10 minutes before we hit record.
Yeah.
And just to give context, I don't know how she does it, but Tisha finds a way to link that to the topic we're talking about. I don't know if I'm subconsciously thinking of something that's going to link, but it just happens.
I think it's because I do think this is one of my talents without even trying, is that you could ask a question to a guest member. You've not, I mean, to a guest. You've not told me beforehand what you're going to ask. You could do it on the fly. And I can somehow link what you've asked back to their experience, their background, their, I guess, hot topic, if you will, whatever it is. But
Yeah,
that's just the
it
talent
amazes
that I
me.
have in my neurodivergence.
Yeah, it's one of the talents that I wish I was able to be so quick on joining the dots the way that you do, because I know I can, I know, and I have done, but to the level you have is mind blowing, and
I've been able to do
I
that.
do get drawn in so much of how you go from answering my question and then flicking it straight onto what we're going to be talking about or
In a
introducing the guest in a way that relates to it, and then bring it in 30 minutes later or towards
in
the
a
end of the
perfect
episode.
world, in a perfect world, Rick,
Yeah.
maybe my dream is to actually be a full-time podcast host because I agree with you. It isn't something I have to practice. I've been able to do this pretty much my whole life, and didn't really see that I could do it until I started working at Wakelet or started doing some
Mm,
of those podcasts. You know, I hosted the Women in Tech
yep.
podcast for Wakelet. Like, that was one of my very first projects. And I realized the talent then. And I think
Mm-hmm.
now in my role at Smart, when I'm doing webinars and things, people who don't know that I have that background and have not worked with me in that way sometimes do not understand the level of trust that they can place into me. I can support them
Yeah.
as they're presenting. I can stay on stage with them. I can make them feel comfortable. And I also have this ability to tie in audience questions to what they're sharing. And I don't know. I don't know how I do it. It is one of my talents. And I think I just really enjoy, one, supporting people, giving people a stage to talk
Mm,
about what they're great at, to be able to connect with an audience globally. It is my favorite thing to do. And Again, we never talk. I never actually know what question you're going to ask an audience member. If we're in a session, like if we're presenting at ISTE, I never know. Like, so I think there's a level of trust that I have with you too, where I'm like, and you with me, where, you could really ask anything and I'm going to figure out how to tie it back in so that
Yeah.
the audience feels like it's still in a nice little package. I
Every
don't know.
single time. It's
Well,
phenomenal.
let's get into the good stuff. I'm just kidding. I'm just
That was
kidding.
not the good stuff. Well, it's
It
the
was
good stuff in
was the good
reference
stuff.
to what you like.
It was the good stuff. It was the good, meaty part of the
Meaty
podcast
part.
episode, the
The
meaty part.
beefy part of the
Yeah,
podcast.
the beefy part. Now I want to talk about we're playing on the song by Justin Bieber, Never Say Never. Never say never. What happens when you do it anyway? This could be a podcast, it could be writing a book, it could be running a marathon, it could be posting on TikTok. It can be whatever you want it to be, right? So never say
Yep.
never. What happens if you do that thing? And Justin Bieber has a song called Never Say Never. You can go listen to it. You don't have to be a Justin Bieber fan to really tune into what I'm going to say here, because I'm going to link it back to everything we just talked about. Justin Bieber, as you know, Rick, or maybe you don't know, but you may not keep up with pop culture as much as I do, but Justin Bieber did a
No.
performance at Coachella. And this performance was basically him on stage with a mic, with a table, with a laptop, and a big screen. And you have to know the history of why this is really significant. First of all, he's been doing music since he was very young. How do I know this? Because my 21-year-old was 3 when she was on YouTube. And she found Justin Bieber on YouTube. And I remember watching this play out in real time. And I'm like, who is this kid? And she's like, I don't know. It's like a singer. His name is Justin Bieber. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I would just let her listen to the music because she loved him. And she's 3 and he's, I don't know, like maybe 9. I don't actually know how old he was back then. So I sort of saw this play out. And so he's been doing music for a long time. And if you go through the history of his manager, Scooter Braun, and you really deep dive into Justin Bieber and how he started out and some of the unfortunate experiences that he's had and the fact that he doesn't have rights to all of that music, you will then understand why him being on a stage with a microphone, a laptop, open on YouTube is on the big screen. And I didn't know he was performing, so I didn't know that I should stay up at 1 a.m. to watch this performance. But I do know people who did. I do know people who stayed up because it was California time, Pacific Standard Time, and they watched this performance. And I started seeing it show up on my TikTok. And I went, wow. The simplicity, the authenticity, the human connection to the fans, the emotional connection that the fans have with the music. And I saw several clips, and what I noticed is that I'm sure it didn't cost as much as some of the other performers to put that show on. I'm sure that the prep time on that wasn't too significant.
Yeah.
The vulnerability for him to be on a stage with a mic, a laptop, and maybe a guitarist or something is huge, because that's just you. You're not leaning on a voice track. You're not leaning on someone to overproduce you. And I talk a lot about, do we need to always over-engineer and overproduce anything that we're working on project-wise? Do we need to do that? Is it really necessary? Or are we doing it because it makes us feel really good? But the thing is, people see through that, especially now in this time of AI, in this time of, oh my gosh, so many different things coming at us all the time, whether it's short form video, long form video, political videos, political statements, press conferences, whatever it is. I think that people are now really tuned in to what's real and what's not. And if you try to sell them something that isn't real, the majority of people are like, we're done. We don't want to have anything to do with that. And his performance, I believe, was such a good example of what it means to just come back to the basics, which is what he did. because he couldn't play the song, but he could play the YouTube video of him as a kid singing the song. To see how he went
Mm-hmm.
around that? I thought that was so creative. And so for me, when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's so amazing. Well, my daughter, Avery, she loves Justin Bieber, and she's loved Justin Bieber since 3, right? She
Yeah.
discovered him on YouTube. It's kind of a cool story. And then he got big, and I would do Bieber-themed birthday parties with giant life-size cutouts of Justin Bieber for her
Wow.
birthday. And ironically, this was years ago. I found this shirt at a vintage store probably 8 years ago maybe, and it's just been sitting there, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get out my Justin Bieber t-shirt. And the thing is, I think that a lot of marketing people, a lot of corporate people, a lot of people who are in marketing trying to sell things could take a little page out of that book. How can
Mm,
you be different? Not how can we be the same and how can we compete with everybody else? And I think for our podcast, that's kind of the approach we took. We didn't want it to be scripted. We didn't want it to be over engineered. We wanted it to be human. We wanted it to be playful. We wanted it to be educational, right? I mean, that's really
yeah.
it. And we wanted to talk about emerging technologies. And I love that. And then something rolled across my brain. I'm going to say it. The feed in my brain is just like always going, as Rick said. And
Yeah.
so
Constantly, nonstop.
I ended up down this really deep rabbit hole with Napoleon Dynamite, which Rick has not seen this movie, and that makes me very
No.
sad. Very, very sad. But Napoleon Dynamite kind of rolled across my internal brain feed one day, and I was like, that movie is fascinating in the same way that this Bieber Coachella performance is fascinating. They didn't spend a lot of money on the production.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have anybody super famous or well known in their cast, with the exception of a sister of someone kind of famous, right?
Mm-hmm.
The script, the dialogue was just very basic and, dare I say, a little bit dry and not exciting. And it's set in this small town where really nothing's happening. Like, nothing's happening. If you grew up in a small town, rural small town, we've talked about, we've had guests who are
Yeah, we've
living
had
that
plenty.
life, right? There's nothing going on. There was no technology, really. Technology was not how it is now. So Napoleon Dynamite is like this, it's such a great example as well of just the basics, going back to the basics. And I think that we need to do that more. And in order to go back to the basics, it really requires you kind of getting out of your comfort zone, if you're listening, and doing the thing that you never thought you would
Mm-hmm.
do. Do the thing you never thought you would do. And honestly, the best advice I have is never say never. And I'm not just saying that because I'm wearing a Justin Bieber shirt. I'm telling you, if you say never out loud to yourself or anybody, the chances of you having that scenario put up in your face to do is going to happen. So I don't say that anymore. I say, you know what? If it's aligned with me, if it's authentic, if it's human centered, that's kind of the screen I'm using these days. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to share that because I think Justin Bieber's performance at Coachella and Napoleon Dynamite have in common sort of what we've wanted to do with our podcast, what we've hoped to allow for our guests who are sharing, and I'm excited for more of that in season 2.
That's amazing. Just watching
Thanks,
you
Rick.
just connecting the dots of 3 completely different things. A movie, a music performance, and our podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's why we have this podcast. Why it just works so
I think
well.
I just made you sentimental without even meaning to,
Oh
actually,
yeah,
because
absolutely you did.
but it really was on my heart to share that, because I just think that going back to the basics, stop over engineering, stop
Mm-hmm.
overthinking, stop overproducing, go back to the
Stop
basics.
needing that you have to have this thing to do the
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good advice. Yes. Say that again.
The fact that you think you need this thing to do the thing. It's not the case.
So good. So good. Wow. Well,
Amazing.
congratulations, Rick, on our season 1 episode
Congratulations to the both of us on
Yes.
50 episodes, season 1, wrapped up.
We're having a rap
nice little
party.
bow.
The rap party is Napoleon Dynamite. That's the homework.
Yes, I will go and watch that movie.
Good.
I feel
good.
disappointed whenever I say that I've not watched something that you're asking me if I've watched.
It's sad,
especially
but it's
when
okay.
she's giving me references from it, and I have no. It's just straight over the head, and she's just
Eat
like,
your food, Tina. Well, thank you all for joining us. Rick, what messages do you have for our audience?
If you've made it this far in our final episode of season 1, and you've enjoyed it, and you've enjoyed all our episodes, even if you've not watched any of the others, you can go and check all of our episodes of season 1 on our profile. There is a playlist on YouTube, or if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, you can check them all out there. If you're not following us yet or subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date on all future episodes for season 2. We're excited. We've got some amazing guests lined up. We can't wait for you to hear those. And if there's anything that you want us to talk about in season 2, new topics, new things that are going on, I'm sure Tish will find many ways to connect them with anything else in the universe. It's her thing. It's her superpower, as well as many other things. But anyway, I digress. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Instagram, TikTok, X, all the places, all the good places. All the links are in the description below. And until next week for season 2, we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye.